Dear aspirants of European Diploma in Intensive Care, here I am Dr. Sunil Garg to guide you in this journey. In this video, we will go through several questions spanning different organ systems. You can pause the video and read the questions and its choices yourself. You can take your own time to practice and understand. Subsequent to question, you will find the correct answer for that question and its explanation. For any more explanation, please write down in the comment section so I can respond there. I wish you a great journey ahead. The primary aim of initiating this is to introduce you to a variety of questions the way it appears in exam with different organ system. Questions are based on basic knowledge and concepts and easy to understand, and their difficulty level is moderate. These questions are designed to test knowledge and understanding of critical care. The explanation provides the rationale behind the correct answer, helping to reinforce learning and understanding of key concepts in critical care. Now you can see questions and their choices. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any feedback, suggestion or comments, please write down in the comment section box. Till then, bye.